Hi folks, Nick Talker here with the Historical Fencing Guild. We are brought to you, as always, by The Simple Sword, the easiest, simplest way to learn to safely kill your friends and family. Big Stompy Robots, because playing tabletop tactics games should be cheap, easy, and fun. And my incredible Patreon members, one of which is right here. Hi, Steph. This is awesome. I have so much good stuff to talk to you guys this week. Yeah, Steph is definitely first in. Don't forget to hit the like button. It's good for the algorithms. Now, I'm brought to you by Patreon members, and we'll start with Steph, Steve Augosto, Brian K. Morris, and the effervescent Cindy Kep. Brian K. Morris is of Risingtide Publishing. If you want independent authors, great stories, or you want to publish yourself, look up Risingtide Publishing. Cindy Kep is www.ckoepp.com. And all my books, The Simple Sword, the BSR lines, can be found at the amazing www.amazon.com/authors/Nicholas Talker. So give me some love. Hit me up. Guys, I have been on it this week, and I had a brainstorm. I got some merch news. I got some other stuff, and we're just going to hit the ball rolling. First off, Stephanie was just messaging me about a comma that was put out. It's by Honshu. You can actually find that comma. It's a stylized Reaper Scythe breed comma through our old friends Bud K. I know this because of late I've actually been walking the path of Bud K. Why, Nick? Why are you walking the path of Bud K? Bud K is a sword provider, leaning often towards the lower end, but I have been digging my way through, and I haven't seen a lot of new news to comment from the usual sources. Not much new out of PHA, nothing really new worth mentioning out of South Coast Arms. What's a swordmaster looking for content to do? That's right. You hit up Bud K and you check the clearance aisle and you see what's coming down the line. I figured out some things, okay? And I'm really, really excited. I can feel it in my plaid. Guys, remember this. We're going to start right here with this. This is the CRKT FE9. It's an ergonomic, really nice little fighting knife that the real one is both out of production and costs more than most firearms I wish to order. I can't get it. Now, I do love this trainer because it's got this nice orthopedic grip. It's a decent length as a knife trainer. But yeah, I'm running into the sword line. Now, Steph, you are just like I don't know if you know how excited I am to see you, because you are one of the people I have had in mind. I've been trying to track down us side swords because, friends, listeners, viewers, guildies across the nation, women are participating in HEMA in numbers never seen before, and that is awesome. The idea that it's the Western martial arts are again spreading across genders, across cultures, across physicalities, just butters my biscuits in the best way. That's finding bacon on a burger you didn't order. It is a thing of beauty. But it leaves me with the quandary. Nick, Steph knows this, I'm a short guy. We have short reach. And I am absolutely in love with some weapons, but they don't make trainers that fit me. They're usually too long or too girthy for my hands. Not that I can't handle girth. But that they're a little hard to handle. And on the off chance one of my unnamed viewers as a friend. I hope you're feeling better. If not, we're going to do what we can to build it back up. You, to the people who know, message right here on the live chat, and I will answer any questions, comments you have, or hit me up on the ye old Facebook Messenger if you have that connection. I'm all about both. But Steph, okay, remember this thing. This thing is nice. The problem with this thing is it's too short. So I'm looking through, and there is the Honshu Spartan Sword, and that's running 77, which is expensive. But it basically looks like a streamlined curve one of these with a 16.5-inch blade. Now, there is the ads are a little difficult because it says, oh, I got pings. Who's pinging me? Whoop. That is nothing due to anything. Cool. Cool. Alrighty. So, Steph, what that means is coming out. Now, see, that blade's cool. It's about $77. Expensive. But it's a wide, hacky sword with a good grip. And that nice, it's still, yeah, it's a little short. But the thing about the Honshu line of swords that are put out through Bud K, I think they're originally United Cutlery. They make matching trainers. Now, a little bit of digging and a lot of nudging, I found out at the end of this month a trainer for that very thing. So I will try to bring it up on my sideline here. But a trainer for that little thing is coming out at about the $35 line. Ooh. Now, give it a second to... Oh, I should not have put that away. All righty. So, doink. Give me just a second. Doink. This is what the knife looks like. It's a little brutal. It's very Spartan, so it's got a bit of hackiness to it. But, my dear friends, noble viewers, and longtime fans, I don't usually collect swords. I can't afford them. I collect trainers. This thing is slicked out to be about 23 and some change inches long with a 16-inch blade. That, I think, for Steph would be because it's going to have a blade. It's actually, let me look at something here. Where did my tape measure go? Hold on, more caffeine. I know, I just had it. Nick, you need to organize. Ha ha ha. Okay. So, my beloved Parry Dagger. Whoop. That was the test. That one didn't count. Yep. It's going to be, according to them, about this long. Okay? So you're about ignoring this part, so I'll pull it off camera. It'll be that long. That's not bad. And for you, Steph, it would be phenomenal. Plus, $30 is a good price range, and it comes with a 77 is a little high for what it is. I'm not gonna lie, but it's the tool made by the same maker who also makes a trainer, and there is not much more in this world I could look for than a good sword that comes with a good trainer. Now, while we're at it, I was looking around and asking, Steve Clausen found a neck knife trainer in that it sheathes, and it is a neck knife, on Amazon. It's running about $30. I'm sorry, I think 35, which is high. But it also comes with the side problem of it's a steel trainer. Now I'm going to bring it up. The design, here we go. Okay, $30.12. So this is technically a neck knife trainer that can be done pulled from the sheath, but it is a blunted steel neck knife trainer. We are close, folks. I want to find a company that will put out a polypropylene or equivalent neck knife trainer in a sheath. I've contacted CRKT. They said, give it a couple of years. I don't have a couple of years to sit and wait for some of my favorite people to be able to train with one of my favorite survival tools. So I'm going to keep hounding people. But speaking of neck knives and going back to our goofy friends at Bud K, if you are looking to see if you like the idea of a neck knife and you want to spend a very small amount of money, Bud K has a very simple, and I'll show it. It's a little longer than I like, but it's skeletonized neck knife. And this guy is going for $4.99 on clearance. They're getting rid of it. Make one. Yes. Well, see, the trick is I can make a neck knife trainer, and as soon as my hands are power tool trustworthy, I'm going to make some. And note, I didn't say one. If I make one that works, I'm going to crank these bad boys out. But the Kydex to make the sheath often is trickier. Oh, I'm sure you could, but I don't know how sturdy it would be. You'd have to use the filament that they have in that Maker 4 carbon filament. There we go. Hi, Cindy. Thank you for waiting. I'm sorry we had some really random technical delays. And we are talking about today is all about small-handed weapons that I've been digging up. So I'm still tracing companies trying to get a quality neck knife that's mass-produced, cheap enough in a sheath that we can train from the draw. Further, I'm trying to track down good frogs and or sheaths for polypropylene weapons that can be done from the draw. Now, another knife, it is not exactly this model. This is the Cold Steel, I think it's the Tonto trainer, which is actually one of my favorite trainers. Honshu also is clearancing off a very similar knife. Let me see if I can get it up. On Bud K for that $7 price range. Now, it is a little sharp in the cross section, and I am not fond of that in a trainer. Right, Stephanie, we have City of Small Hands. And I've been looking at this, and I've been trying to figure out how to broach this problem in a way that the manufacturers will listen to me, to you, to the folks. Because, gosh darn, we have money. Small people are engaged in HEMA. We have money, and we want tools that fit our hands. Like, I want desperately a polypropylene version of this. I will pay good money for something relatively light that I can get to keyhole grip. That's roughly, wow. I will just, today is the day, folks. Today is the day. I'm gonna get it back to you. That I keep running into this line for liking short swords with about a 24, 23-inch blade. I know a fellow who does very good leather work if you're looking for specific stuff that doesn't appear elsewhere. He does historical reenactment too. if he has Sydney, if he has a website, please by all means throw it up in the comments and throw it up on the Historical Fencing Guild's public site. That way people can look into it. But this 24-inch weapon, it's an odd size. And it's, you go looking up trainers, and that's going to bring us back to something important, okay? I'm almost through my shoppy shop things before we get to bring the commentary. The longtime fans and old-time Skadians recognize this. This is my so-called Lord Sword. I adore this sword. I adore the length. I adore the balance. If this had a fencing blade on it this length, I would have 2 of them. Would I like a more protective guard? Absolutely. Thank you, Cindy. That's www.facebook.com/Mr. Leatherworks. We will look up his stuff. I'm not condoning it yet because I haven't looked it up yet. But I will plug, I want us to support small makers. This is a nice sword, and it's familiar, and it flows. And I mean, I love this weapon. Now we're going to talk about the important part. And why does this weapon matter so much for our conversations? It has a 23.5-inch blade. It has an overall length of 31 inches. That's nice. Narrow relative gauge, about 7/8. In this case, it has a staggered bead and washer grip. To actually be, since it's, I want to say epoxied, it's very positive. This is a very nice grip. It's one of my favorite swords, and because of my height and hand size, I can use this as a two-handed or one-handed, an elegant, flowing, water dancey sword. And as soon as I did that, I got a question mark. I had a thought. I had a cunning little thought, because this was made, I believe, in Pakistan. It's either Pakistan or India. Yes, this is a Pakistani kind of low-end blade. If I saw them more, I would order them. But a water dancey sword. And look, the gears, guys, the gears in your deranged swordmaster's head, they started to crinkle. They started to pop. And I got a crazy idea. I looked up the sword, boink, of a very famous modern character. I looked up, and this is great, this needle, the sword of Arya Stark. Now, why does that matter? It's a $200 live steel blade. Why would that matter to me? Do you know the dimensions of that particular esteemed little weapon? I do. They are, and I quote, why is it doing that? Okay. 30.5 inches in overall length with a 22.5-inch blade. Ladies, and actually tonight it's mostly ladies, and gentlemen, if you're lurking in the background, that's fun. Needle, the character, iconic sword of young Arya is 22.5-inch long blade, 30.5 inch long. That, dear friends, coupled with a narrow grip for small hands, makes it a delightful fantasy option. For those of us looking for a light two-handed thrusting weapon, a very strange, very elegant little weapon for very strange, very elegant little people. There is not a polypropylene trainer of needle yet. But for those of LARPing inclinations, there is a latex foam over a fiberglass rod, LARP grade replica of needle to scale. They're available through many workers, and they run $35. So, friends, ladies especially, please, I want to start a little movement. I want to start a movement that reminds the makers of gear that those of us of small stature, small height, have buying power. A legion of the small to rise up and send messages like, hey, make us gear that fits our hands. So I am, and I will be going through shamelessly, mercilessly, starting a propaganda campaign, starting a movement, because there are women who want to fight. There are women who loved Arya, because guess what? That was a little person who killed big people because she was a bad. And that warms, guys, friends, loves in my heart, that warms me to my black little soul. A hobbit assassin is a thing of beauty and irony and just evil. So I pose to you, dear readers, listeners, and all-around awesome guildies, get on the comment sections of Facebook and, on the sites themselves. Go to Purple Heart Armory. Go to Bud K. Go to Cold Steel and say, I want Arya's sword. I want a polypropylene replica of needle. Because if you've looked at that sword, do you realize how easy a polypropylene version would be to modify to our needs? It's delightful. It's brilliant. And it's a cutting, underhanded solution that us little people have to develop because the big people all want to swing sledgehammers at each other. And the idea, God forbid, that needle is literally the dimensions of my favorite lifesteel sword for this sort of thing. Like this, if I could find this particular sword, I would link it and I would say, buy one, ladies. I called this my Deedlit sword because it reminded me of the sword carried by the elf Deedlit in the seminal anime masterpiece, Record of the Lotus War. So, friends, with a little bit of brand power, a little bit of buying power, we might be able to start something pretty darn cool. And for those of us looking for more hacky slashy weapons, there's a couple things that really are getting there. Bud K, of all things, the M48 line is pretty good. It's sort of their answer to Cold Steel. And they have something called the Commander Saber with a 30-inch sword, 30-inch blade, and a gymnasium-style grip almost. It flares at the bottom. Not quite my fighting style, but it's there. And yes, Steph, Arya and her fighting style would fit you far better than you give credit for. So I really hope you can look in terms to set something up. Sorry. I had a sword slide while everyone was busy during the, hey, my computer won't load up. So I'm very, very excited about this. And frankly, I don't know if any of you have any idea how much it would just break my heart to just rend my soul to open up practice sometime when the death bug lifts and it's safe to possibly allegedly be encrypted in public again, and have a whole bunch of you out with the equivalent of needle. Have a whole historical fencing guild sewing circle. It would be beautiful. Oh. Shh, Steph. There's a certain group where special images of me are being bandied about, debating my alleged cryptidness. Now, I'm not sure, but they haven't caught me yet. See, your dirty coppers will never catch me alive. See, but so that's part of my news this week. Um, um, we're gonna have weapons that fit, and like I said, I am also incredibly excited. It's still a little shorter than I'd like. Again, I really like something like this with about a 24-inch blade, but 16 is not bad, especially for Steph. And I say that because Steph favors a very strong grip. You know, a very aggressive, tight grip on her weapons, and a very kind of concussive fighting style. So I think those might port over really good for those of us who are more inclined to the flowing scream emotions. Oh no. I'm Steffi messaged me something that and mistook it as my reaction as being sad. I'm not sad about that per se. We had a loss in the family. I don't like to air my business too much here when it doesn't directly affect you guys. And there's been some discussion of whether it's safe for certain people to go to funerals. It's a big deal. And I'm worried about a lot of people because I kind of feel like we're nearing the part where the horror movie where everybody thinks that the killer is dead and he sits back up and he takes another life. You know what I'm saying? I just have that vibe. And there it's I've had to say things that I believe are necessary, but they weigh heavy. You know, it's not easy to tell the truth as you see it, and I worry. So it just spiraled. This has been an incredibly trying couple weeks. The passing of Ben hit me like a sledgehammer. The passing of my aunt is more complicated, but we're not here for that. You know what I'm saying? If there's ever a time where people want to come and set up something where we talk about what's hurting and stuff, Lord knows I'll be there to set it up. But I'm here to buoy and bring the guild back together and keep the conversations going, which I am so very ecstatic to do. Now, that's my hand turning off. It does that every so often. So what I'm going to do is buoy things up. We need the positivity right now. You guys need me to be the smiling goofball that I am. And that's what I'm going to do, because that's what I'm about. 1 second. The odd caffeine-fueled conspiracy of delight and distraction. That is the Historical Fencing Guild's weekly live stream. I mean, we're in season 2. I had to start a new season. And for those of you who that matters, I'm back librarianing. Because the numbers got down low enough, I feel safe enough that I can go and maintain my employment. It had some effects on my potential raising, but I made decisions and I stand by them. Which means, hey, maybe we'll get some more money in to do some good things by the time we need to do things. What do you get when Bigfoot walks in your garden? Squash. Cindy Kemp is the reigning queen of puns. She is the ultimate pundit, the pontification, the pontifex of puns. That's delightful. And yes, you know, I was talking to Biggie not too long ago about the Yetis getting out of territory. It's a big pain. It really is. They don't belong this far south. They have no. I mean, annually their migration through LaPorte County is one thing, but coming all the way down here, nah. So as soon as this weather shifts, we're booting those dudes back where they belong, or I'm putting them to work mowing my lawn. Anyway, yeah. So I do want you guys to check out the Bud K line of polypropylene weapons, because they're having difference. Now, I'm not saying buy them. A lot of it is there's. Everyone is quiet tonight. I don't think we've regulars, and that's okay, guys. That is okay. I will take quiet as you like what I'm saying and you're paying attention. You're really eager. So I'm going to keep doing that. Now, if there's something you don't like, hit. That's what the comments, guys. Turn the comments, the live feed comments where they're going down the side on. You want to see what's going on, or I look downright schizophrenic. And then I look downright schizophrenic anyway. I understand. I look a little nuts some days coming in here, being my goofy self. But, friends, colleagues, Romans, that's okay. We need silliness. Now, Nick, you don't have a long list of gear. You kind of covered it fast. I did. And I am watching some of the new things coming out and looking to see what's worth reviewing. I just purchased a Roman Legionnaire Gallia helmet. How would you rate this helmet among others? Thanks, longtime fan. Dusty Katzenberger, I recognize your name. So it's good to see you back on. The Gallia helmets are beautiful, depending on the maker. See, they're wonderful gear. Steph, who's under the handle Morningstar 2342, usually watches this with her husband, fiance. When people say they're going to get married, I'm done. I just kind of pre-marry them in my head because I'm not good with personal liminal states. I like environmental liminal states. They're great helmets. They provide really solid protection. But a lot of it breaks down to the maker. I still would recommend, if you are fencing or you're sparring, wearing something like a fencing mask, possibly depending on the style you're fighting, with the overcoif or head protection. But those are really cool. Now, if that's an SCA graded one and it's 16 gauge mild steel, 22 gauge stainless, if I remember right. It's been years. If John Miner were here to correct me, it's great. The face protection isn't perfect, but that's a solid helmet. That's something to be proud of. And yeah, one thing, if you have it and the strapping's good, even if you're not sparring in it, definitely consider strapping that bad boy on if you feel it's safe enough, and practice sparring wearing the helmet. People talk about arms and armor like they're separate systems, and they're really not. It's an integrated approach, okay? Now, I admit, while I do love period techniques and ideas, I also embrace wholeheartedly modern concepts of body armor for what we do, as largely it's lighter and often less expensive. But that being said, is there anything cooler than putting on a helmet of a given style and just like, yes, you just kind of Lord immersion over here. And you can tell I deal with a lot of graded helmets because that's where my mind goes. But sorry, like I said, I take messages, and my typing is atrocious, so that's fine. But we need to talk about that because that's cool. Fencing and fencing with armor are two different. Well, okay, in D&D, we're going to go to D&D. There, you have weapon proficiencies and you have armor proficiencies. What that means is the mechanics of fighting in body armor is very different than not fighting in armor or fighting in a medium grade armor. This is things like chainmail or leather. Now, fencing shortlist. What? Wait, Steph? That would be really cool. That's where you're bringing the spirit of what you're doing into it. Wearing wow, Steph, you just flatlined me for a second there. I'm gonna get in trouble, so I'm just gonna keep going from that comment. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna. Sorry, I'm in a mood. But yeah, actually, I think that would be fascinating because people don't think about the historic. And okay, Stephanie's talking about women dueling shirtless, and that was something that actually did happen in a few occasions, very late in the periods here, looking at 1800s, 1700s, a bit late 17, early 18, all the way up to the early 1900s in certain societal things, because that was the tradition of basically a lot of honor duels were essentially to the first blood. So the first bleeding wound is declared the winner. This mitigates the likelihood of death or dismemberment. So in male traditions, they would take off their shirts and they would fence. In female, there have been recorded occasions of that. I am obligated by morality and the fact that I'm trying to take care of you all to say that's a really bad idea on like 6 fronts, just because of the safety and legality, potential exposure depending on laws. So let's not. But I'm certain it's very entertaining, and heaven help me for saying that. Now, back to Dusty's question. And Dusty, because I can't see your thing and your icon real well, best tell me what your preferred pronoun is, because we live in a world where it's really hard to tell, and I want to make sure that I can wade in and refer to you properly. I have known female Dusties and I've known male Dusties. And a couple Dusties. They get confusing. That's okay. That's their choice. But that being said, male. Okay, thank you, sir. And thank you for understanding the need for that, because I would rather ask a dumb question than say something dumb. Although, stick around. If you're a longtime fan, you know I'll say something dumb. No, learning to shoot archery whilst wearing armor will show you a whole different set of binds, hang-ups, and how it affects your overall view. I love light-grade archery. Obviously, I mean, my hands are held together by elastic. But, thank you for being gracious. But yeah, wearing the full armor gives you that idea. One thing, part of why I got into sword fighting was very, very early I got into D&D. Like, I was a little kid during the Satanic Panic, and I found my first D&D rulebook alongside the road on a garbage day. And I grabbed it, and I loved it. But where over the years I would play with people who wanted to be like the uber mage, or like Throgar the barbarian, I wanted to get skills in game that my crazy self could get in life. That's why I usually play a cleric and I usually play a rogue. I predate paladins. Yeah, you read it. I am older than paladins in D&D. But I've played more than a few of those too. That being said, I love skills. And in the great nerd geek debate, I am a geek who collects nerdly skills. So, yes, I started with my first owned was the new. Oh, I like the idea of being heavily skilled archer on chariot gets me go. Yeah. Now, this combines a lot of aspects of my youth that sadly were not combined because I always had, as a young man, just too much good sense to have as much fun as I could have. But we used to do truck surfing. Okay, truck surfing is riding in the back of a pickup truck, hold one hand holding onto the cable. If you're going to be a sissy about it, and we really should, while the truck goes careening around. It is not wise. I don't recommend it. I did a lot of archery. I was blessed to grow up largely in a home with a large open front field where I engaged in marksmanship for amusement. This is a shocking concept in the country, in the world right now, but there are people who like to use assorted devices to test their skill in putting little holes in paper, and there's nothing immoral or inherently violent about that. And as such, I did a lot of archery. Now, I really wish I had tried shooting from the back of a pickup truck. That sounds like something I would have enjoyed. But yes, yeah, that you know what, Dusty, if you have heavy armor, I have a set of Lorca that, come to think of it, given my weight, if I could ever get cleaned up, would probably fit me a lot better than it used to. Homemade leather and brass Lorca segmentata, at least the chest piece, which, as it was for someone much taller than me, is nearly a body piece, but it wraps wonderful stuff. The idea of that level of encumbrance while practicing, that's fascinating. Now, I know the SCA does have armored archers. A lot of LARPs have armored archers, but LARP arrows are often dubious as they come in a couple variants. Oh, okay. Swords commonly associated with archers. This is great stuff to discuss. It very much shifts with the period and the geographic location. What you had often, because we have to realize that the spear and the longbow, when used in combat, most often in standard combat, formation, group ranks, the longbows were lined up and it was an area of effect attack. Knock, draw, loose. They never yelled fire because that wouldn't have made sense. There was no fire involved vast majority of the time. But that being said, archers tended to be light. So you're looking at shorter swords, arming swords. I would think, mind you, that a Roman gladius would be a fine archery weapon because it's short, it's relatively light, and it's not much entangling. But we have to remember the swords are most often where combat's involved. They're sidearms, so we can't think of it as a primary weapon. Very often, because of the allure of the sword, we get this mythos. Exactly. A spatha could be a bit long, but then again, archers tended to be lighter armed. Now, when you got to medieval archers, you had things like, again, an arming sword, a long dagger, perhaps a hand axe. When you get into my favorite breed of archer, and indeed my favorite fighting class of any individual, the peasant revolt style, archery was very popular with the peasants. There's a type, God, I can't remember it. Not a Sika. No, that's not the name of it. Dang it. Anyway, the type of very crude, easily to mass produce crossbow, actually, that I was looking at. And it was one of those that was born out of peasant revolts. They needed something. Yes, gladiuses are just nice. And I'll get to that in a second, because gladiuses are interesting in a sort of historical revolution. Not that they themselves revolve and change history, but it's something we routinely come back to. But my favorite, one of my favorite swords of all time is a dussack. It's essentially a medieval machete with that really neat curl around. It was made to be simple. It was made by blacksmiths and farm implement smiths to be something that, obviously you could use like a machete, but you also, all the sword work applied. Wonderful weapon. So you have something that's light, inexpensive, that the farmer might already have. And then, longbows and some arrows stabbed in the ground next to him, trying to do what he needs to do to get his point across. That's beautiful. Hi, off in the woods. Peasant. Yes, Steve. I like peasant weapons. And what you missed if you haven't been on, Steve, we're getting some good people out, was my favorite sword is within half an inch of the length dimensions of Arya's needle. So I am trying to make a movement to get all the ladies in the guild and to spread it around. Steve's not a peasant. No, he's an old school patron. He's going to build it. Me? I'll take peasant class. I am what I am. I like short. Let's break it down now. Can't talk. losing the English. Got to break it down. So let's think of this. Okay. I like small axes. I like large knives. I like reasonably short swords that I can draw. This is ornate. Steve gave it to me. This is also one of my favorite swords. The grip's a little dodgy, but this is also very close to how a dussock would work, because the solid tang curls around, brings around. Sidney Kemp says, which mythical beast never cleans its room? The Loch Ness Monster. And I got that out without stuttering. That's bonus points in the Nick pool. Don't know what the bonus points for me are for, but nobody really cares. Oh, by the way, 6 watchers, 2 likes, guys. Somebody hit that like button so YouTube lets me keep doing this. Now, peasant weapons. Civilian weapons. I favor rapiers, and I favor small swords. Heaven help me, I kind of like a spadroon if it's balanced right, and I love a good saber. These are not military-ish weapons. Now the saber is, yes. But, especially like that because Nick sees Nick's cousin. Oh God, be careful. That picture that was circling around might resurface. And yeah, I'm gonna get I really need to get buttons made of not a cryptid. I might just see if I can't make that happen. But oh, way to derail it. But yes, that gladiuses are great. Short, thrust heavy weapons are great. Now, if you want to look at efficiency, look at ancient to medieval era conscription based armies. Oh, the pickaxe is a great weapon. The recoil is a little dodgy though. So let me see. What do I have in the realm of axeries? I'm actually very limited in my axeries right now. But I do have dropping things again. That's fine. This is the Cold Steel Trenchhawk Trainer. Okay? A lightly bearded, small-headed hatchet axe has been on the battlefield for pretty much nearly ever in that this is simple to make. Carving stone is expensive back in the day, in that took a lot of time, took a lot of effort, and you had to find the right stuff. Metal more so. You take this little back spur off, and you get this lovely Danish axe. And one of these days, I think I'm going to order one of these just for the purpose of just cutting the spur off, just to make it a little more period. This, and especially this length. Now, Danish axes were like this, but on a long stick. So, if we take my handy dandy, if we take my handy dandy, I'm not taking it apart, boar spear, and instead you put an axe head on the top, you get this roughly 5.5 foot long implement of destruction. And that's a great length. It gives you reach while maintaining control. It lets you do things, and it still doubles as a great walking stick. It's a very practical thing. The nice thing about a hand axe like this is you have to be able, in a lot of cases, to fend for yourself. You have to be able to start fires. There, especially when you look at historical. This is why I love it. I've actually worn the paint right off from scratching my back. But okay. You have to start fires. You have to use this as a tool as well as a weapon. And something like this makes a decent improv hoe for breaking up dirt. The axe, you can also grab it like this and use it as a knife supplement for not hyper detailed things. Look at the way the fur trappers use their tomahawks. That is Mr. Happy's cousin. This is the orange version of my. I want a kit of my favorite sidearms. I have this, which is the Cold Steel Parry Dagger for folks. It is currently. I was working on making an impromptu sheath out of an old cell phone POG thing to see if I can make it a neat deployable sheath, because I do have gnomish tendencies. And then we have, of course, the Cold Steel buckler. These are my standardized for people who know. If you're doing any HEMA type sport and you want secondary offhand weapons, this is sort of the triad of awesomeness. You have a hacky weapon, you have a shield, a very small but effective shield. You have me dropping the axe because my hand isn't working, and you have the dagger. Another good element for that sort of weapon and length is this little kukri. Now, this kukri functions much like a falcata. It functions much like some Sparthos. It's aggressive, but the idea of a short chopping blade that can be, that should be a lantern. One of these days, guys, I'm going to tell you, one of these days, I'm going to make a fencing lantern. I'll probably have to drop glow sticks in the middle to keep it lit without, the electrical problems. I may get a piece of polycarbonate tubing. And somebody's going to get me a brown hooded robe thing. And I will, for you, envision, one of my favorite Final Fantasy tropes, that being my boy Toneberry. Toneberry. And then you get a few seconds before I stab the guts out of you. Yeah! We all love gut stabbings. In a comment, we are hitting the hour mark. I want to thank my patrons and supporters especially. So we're getting near to the. I'll knock that out. I want to thank Steve Clausen. I want to thank John Miner. Those two guys support me not through Patreon, but through indirect or direct means, and donate items for me to review. I intend to be doing some business further with John Miner of Swakhammer Metals. He is responsible for the guard on my personal rapier, which is not in reach right now, and a few other things. I have other plans with Steve Clausen. So thank you. Support them. I also definitely want to thank my Patreon patrons. If you want to support me and help keep the lights on and me having gear to assess so I can tell you what works and what doesn't, get on the Historical Fencing Guild's Patreon channel. It'll be in the description when I'm done with this live stream, or just type in the Historical Fencing Guild. I have some literary projects akin to the sequels to The Simple Sword, which are being worked on, and I'm thinking I will be giving you guys a little preview, simply because you've supported me. I also have something else in the works for them, so stay tuned. I spent a month where my hands didn't work and I couldn't use a normal size fork. That was because of some testing and diagnosis, and it stunk. So it has set me back. As I build back up and I get new braces and gear and find new ways of doing things, I'm getting right back on the horse to get some specific things done. And I think that's pretty gosh darn exciting. So we're going to stay tuned for all of that. Plus, once the weather lets loose and this COVID thing is, placated, when I get my shots and my family gets their shots, and I know I'm not going to be bringing a vector into my tiny community, we'll open up and we'll have footage on Friday nights or whenever we do practices, and it'll rock. It will abso-fraggedly rock. And I want to do some interview shows because I have a lot of female martial artists. I have varied martial artists. I want to be able to sit down and put the spotlight on you folks so that you can talk about the challenges, the strengths. I'd love to do an interview with like John Miner. Basically, a lot of the people you hear who support me, I want to support them back. And thank you for the likes, guys. So that's our first hour. Second hour, we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to briefly get political. And by briefly, I don't want to spend more than a couple minutes on this subject. Occasionally, my interests overlap with those of firearms enthusiasts. There is a bill called HR 127. I'm not going to say rallying and get rid of it, because that's not my job. I'd far rather have you guys download it and read it yourselves, okay? Look into that. Some of it is very problematic. So, now, I said I'd give myself about a minute. That's as political as I intend to be right now, at least on this channel. We may set up something else more personal or whatever to discuss it if it needs discussed. But, second verse, same as the first, let's get rolling. Right now it's February in Indiana. To those of you who don't know, February in Indiana means the icy breath of death is upon us. It is 13 degrees flat out, and then you add 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and, squirrels freeze to death when they move off the tree. It's scary cold. We're also all coming off pandemic. Garbage. I'm going to assume Steve saying garbage refers to HR 127, at which point I do personally agree. But I'm tired of talking heads projecting the news. This is significant. Look it up, read it through. It's not a bad time to learn how to use a knife, or a sword, or an axe, or a stick. But back to the fun. While it's cold, many of us are out of shape. I want you guys, all of you here, if you haven't been drilling, it's time to go all the way back to the basics. I don't care how comfortable you are with it. I don't care if you know it inside and out. If you want to get better, you start at the beginning, okay? Make sure your stance is comfortable. Pick a place where you're not going to have issues with entanglement. Pick a trainer that feels right in your hand. This, for me, is a good minimum, this is what I would consider a minimum sword blade length. Now, I do love what would be classified as a short sword. I actually prefer them. This is for a standard sword about perfect. If you're looking for a more thrust-centric blade, one second. Whack yourself with it. Haha. This is about a perfect thrust-centric blade. It's about, I would say, an inch too long. This is a 36-inch standard foil. Cindy Kemp was asking about C-curves. This old baby. And I will not fight with this, in part because of the rigging and in part because this blade is very old. Has a very clear C-curve. It wants to bend one way. And if you look at it, it does bend. Boom. It's much happier. It holds it ever so slightly, years and years. Nice. But that's a good length. This is light. If you don't own a sword, use literally anything. And I'm looking for something in this area that is not a sword. So give me a second. One, I was looking for this knife. Half sorting is fascinating. Give me just a second, and I will get to half sorting, Dusty. Practice. I assume you mean half sorting, where, okay, well, The length, I'm a little confused, but do your drills. The very first video I ever posted on this channel is a simple walkthrough, upright format, so it works really well on cell phones, of the basic 9 guards. I think it might just be the 8. I really didn't talk. If I don't remember, it's been 9 years. But okay, so do that. Drill slowly. Pay attention to your body. First, make sure you're not. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dusty. First, make sure you're not going to hurt yourself. So if you feel tightness, move slow. If you are experienced in dealing with martial arts and bringing back, you'll know the difference between good pain and bad pain. Bad pain usually has a burn to it, but this is different. If you don't know, you shouldn't be dealing with this by yourself. You should. If it hurts, stop. Now, when you reach my age or condition, pain's a constant, so it becomes a plethora, a cornucopia, a spectrum of meanings and delight. Pain is an old companion of mine, which will be with me till the end of my days, meaning I'm never truly alone. But go through the drills slowly in short sets to get the fluidity back, the movement. You want to be able to get it. We're not worried about speed. We're worried about control. I took up fencing in part to learn to control my rage. I was a very angry young man at certain points in my life, and I didn't pursue an outlet. I pursued a harnessing, and I really do believe I took the right route. Now, I need a weapon to talk about half sorting. No. 1 second. I will not half sort this baby. I will be doing a restoration video when I have a place set up where I can get the camera to clean this guy up and just show you how nice it is. I'll show you the poor man's guide to cleaning brass. We'll have a good time with it. It just Max, I'm not dead. Just means I'm not dead. Yep. Okay. I want this because it's white. This started out life for those of you who don't know, as a gin. Whoop, I have a message. Now, while I open this up to see who the gin. Hi. Steph will be leaving us for a little bit. She's not feeling well, so feel better. So hope your migraine clears up soon, Steph. Okay. Now, got him. Jeez, my. Yes. Okay. John Hudson messaged me the Trench Hawk trainer. Go. Where is that? I have that. He messaged me something. Actually, this. This is the Cold Steel Trench Hawk trainer. Pardon the dust. I'm going to answer his question. I'm not forgetting the half sorting. This is relatively inexpensive. It's very high quality and provides surprisingly good hand protection. John is a bit of a World War I enthusiast as well as a World War II enthusiast. So by all means, you should be able to get this between $10 and $8 usually. Oh, excuse me. Order yourself one. I definitely will say you won't regret it, John. And since he might not be on, all right, now back to the question. Half sorting. Now I'm using obviously essentially a small sword because that's what I have handy, and I don't want to go trouncing along for something bigger and take out my ceiling fan again. Half swording is basically when you have a two-handed sword, which I can still use this as, and you grab around the blade to get more control, to angle a thrust, apply more force, or as a matter of fact, it is something that can be done. Sword grabbing is something I've certainly messed with a bit. As long as you're tight and you're locked in, a gloved hand should not have any damage. That being said, it's really, again, I need to get and jam this and angle it in between some sword plates. This guy, you'll see this motion a lot in half swording where you've grabbed it, pushed their weapon aside. One thing people don't get, what clanking body armor fights are not, they're not cumbersome, okay? They're very mobile, they're hyper aggressive, and they're about 3 times closer than you think. A lot of times I've seen heavy armored combatants and they are fighting shield to shield. The blows are raining to the back of their opponent's heads using something called a wrap shot. So do I have an opponent's head handy? Can I make an opponent's head handy? I am not going to use my manatee as an opponent's head. I like my manatee too much. Okay. This is the opponent's head. Well, this will be an opponent's head if I can get my hand to work. Close enough. No, not close enough. And that broke. Fine. The sword comes around and hits the back. So a lot of the blows are landing on the neck, the cervical vertebrae, upper spine, lower spine, hips. What the? Okay, there's that. Where's the other now? I need to buy some epoxy when I go out. That's okay. Anytime you're developing new gear, because it's not on the market, you have to deal with teething pains. Anyway, half sorting is something, it's a little earlier in period than I usually like to hang out, but it is it's a valid technique and very, I know it's wrong, very useful when you're dealing with an opponent who is heavily armored and you're extremely close. There we are. Helps if I put it together right. But so yeah, half sorting basically turns your sword into a much more efficient weapon for that style of combat, being a spear. This does always bring me the question, if you think you're going to half sword, and stylistically that appeals, why not just use a short spear? The range and retraction is better. They're usually lower cost historically, and this is a versatile weapon. Being a spearman is some of the most fun you can have in heavy armor, especially if you have a dedicated shield wall you're working around. You can snipe from behind it. You can snipe from within it. They're handy. So this spear was made for me by John Miner of Swakhammer Metals, because I was using a parry dagger and chunk of pipe to approximate a boar spear. I love the offset stop. I haven't used this yet, so I have some sneaking suspicions that there may be some minor quality issues just in how it will hold up to combat and not break. But it's a beautiful thing, and I adore it. So I may do something else and just save that as more of a run. Plus, my wife loves it, and I don't want to die. Okay, but yeah, so look into them. Tallhofer Talks has a lot of frames saying Tallhofer Talks is a little dubious. I'm trying to remember if Gigante mentions it in any of his treaties when he's talking about the greatsword. But it's a fascinating, it's a neat variant of making a tool do something that maybe it's not. if you're looking into historical half sorting, short sword. Yeah, and see, that's where we run into terminology problems during research, and isn't that fascinating? That's where do you mean a short sword or you're short sorting? To this day, handling a pool cue in certain circles with a certain style is called short shanking. And that's the where the fight's got too close with a spear. So I'm going to pull my grip here, keep the back of the spear off, and work here because I have to. It's the same concept with the sword. Oh, so it's really something that should be looked. Ryan does that's off in the woods. Does Meyer have much to say on that subject? That's more your domain than mine. Like I said, I tend. This might shock you. There are some people online who, if they're not 100%, instead of just BSing, will defer to others. That's why it's the fencing guild, not the Nick Tucker school of I'm right and you're wrong, which I've encountered that mentality far too many times in HEMA, SCA, LARP, etc. I thought I had seen one, but again, Meyer's not somewhere I mentally live a lot. His style is much more fitting of someone of certain. I find Meyer works better for someone who's rather tall and lanky. And yes, some of the styles work better because they were made by people of a certain body type. So, yeah, see, that's the problem. Off of the woods, that's Ryan. He's a good friend, a guild member. You guys have seen us spar. It's good people. His longsword is all unarmored, so not really. And see, that's the problem. When we look at historically, I was talking very earlier in this that arms and armor interlock. They're systems. And many times, arms don't make sense without the armor that goes with them. And the armor doesn't make sense without the arms. They're meant to oppose each other. You see this a lot during the Crusades, where the European Crusaders fought with straight swords because straight swords are much better for dealing with an armored combatant, where a heavily armored combatant, where the Muslim forces, Saladin's forces, tended to use subtle to heavily curved swords, because when you're dealing with unarmored opponents, a weighted curved sword like a saber, a scimitar especially, works really well because you get a lot of cutting distance, you get a lot of force on the cut. You don't necessarily need as much focus on the stab. I'm a thrust guy. I'll never lie about it. I will always be a rapierist at my heart, and pretty much Gigante will always be my favorite period instructor. Not that I don't love the Spanish, but if you look at the build of Gigante, he was a little guy. So a lot of his fighting style really makes sense if you're a little guy. Hey, you know what? Thank you, Dusty. I'm on every Friday night from 7 Central till 10 for about 2 hours. So I came on a little late, but yeah, thank you. Great content. And that's what I want, guys. This should be a conversation. This is when it's at its best. When I've got people who know what they're talking about going on. Now, getting back, Steve, you came on late. Did you hear about the Honshu Spartan sword? It's basically just shy of a double length one of these. I was running about $77, which is a little pricey for a modern knife, knife, sword, short sword weapon. But the trainer that will be out at the beginning of the month is running 35. Given its relative length and the longer hilt and the fact it's going to flow, you may want to invest in one of those because I think it'd be a great sword for you. This seems to work. I'm also, in case you missed it, I am on a one-man crusade to get people to complain about not having a polypropylene needle. So if you guys get a chance, ask for. I'm sorry, my voice is cutting out. I worked today for the first time in many months. I'm a very noisy librarian. But if you get a chance, bug them to at least make a prop version, a polypropylene of Arya's needle, because that's a small weapon, it's light, and like 3 or 4 people who are on tonight would benefit between the ones who are talking and the ones who've been messaging me. And I'm really, one of my great goals and passions in life, I bet that's what we're on, is making sure that everyone has the weapons they need and the tools they need to train in our arts. Whoa, 1 second. Sorry, we had a bit of technical pop-up to say hi. But yeah, now, as these videos go on, I do want to start doing additions. I'm going, if all goes well in the near future, to do, I have a metric poop ton of trainer reviews to do. Because basically I need to review individually every single trainer that I have, so that I can help people know what it does, how it works, what works with it. See, I actually really have come to like this goofball. I did it before, but with the braces and the steel there, this locks in rather nice. And 1 second. Right. And okay, Steve says too small if you have normal hands. And that's exactly my point, Steve. And what the whole almost first half hour of this video was about. That. Too small if you have normal hands. Steve's hands are 1.5 of mine wide. Okay? So this is a canned ham. John Miner, if he comes on, his hands are and a pinky of mine in all directions. That's literally like a ham shank for a hand. But that's what the martial arts trainers, the guys who make gear, tend to cater to. It's real easy. I have heard time and time again that this guard is a bit on the small side. It's tight for some people to get their hands in. Why is that? My hands are an extra large width. Now, my fingers are short because I am essentially a dwarf. Like if a dwarf and a hobbit and maybe a gnome somehow got busy, they'd make a nick. But so I have these wide, very shallow hands. It's funny because when I wear fingerless gloves that that work on things, my fingers don't stick out the top, but they have to be that wide to be large enough. So, like, this won't fit your grip perfect, but all people like Cindy Kep, like Steph, like me, like Amanda, like Jessica. I have a whole bunch of people who want to do what we do, but the gear is like trying to fence with a soup can in your hand. And that's why something like this, where if you have tiny hands, especially encumbered, this locks in. Is it my favorite knife? Not at all. Am I tempted to order a second one and round off these points for safety and simple preference? Absolutely. But I can make it go. And anyone watching this video has watched me drop things. The neuropathy in the carpal tunnel in my hands and arms means my hands don't always work. So I'm going to look towards options increasingly that both have retention integrated. Okay, this is going to lock in. And this, ironically, though this is nearly double the thickness because of the shape and this is a cold steel trench knife trainer, if I remember right. These lock in really, really nice. So while it does impede my mobility as a fencer, smallest leather yard work gloves I could find fly off if I had an open. I had more than closed. Unless I had my hand more closed than not. See, Steve, I can find gear tailored to you and your kind of grips. This is too small. Steve can't use this basket. But they're not here because I don't use them. When I'm demonstrating, I favor these narrow things, and people are looking for them. Now, you could get away with something like this that's very orthopedic. And Cindy Kep, I would look into the foam area trainers if you want something that you might take to a fair, to like a LARP of some sort. I've been looking into them. Now, my wife has a severe latex allergy, so I am not likely to get that style of boffer. I have made some of my own. Any chance you have any? Yes, and any new information. Um, I'm really glad to talk to you. I know it will be out of the basic line. It will be non non-flexing, like all the basic lines, like the sword. Oh, but did you hear about his Meyer rapier? I say it that way because it's basically rapier with two P's. He made a really innovative. Give me just a second. It'll take me a minute to bring that up. Oh, my nose itches. But oh, my nose itches. Ow. It's that masks. Okay. Wait. We're gonna go rapier, and we'll see because I check every day to see there's still no picture of the basic trainer. I'll bug Christian again, but I do have something I want to show you if you haven't seen it. No, I've seen the steel one. The steel one's beautiful. It's a cup hilt. It makes me melty. It's just way above my price range. No, what I am talking about. I'm sorry, I have a lot of screens. Where did it go? That's interesting. He seems taken. The thing with Christian is occasionally over at Purple Heart, the weapons are fluid in that there are new versions coming out frequently. Oh wow, I checked earlier today and some of these aren't up. But where is that rapier? And I hate to put it that way. I have to talk about it in that term. Let me just do this. Let's go price. We'll just do this. Give me just a second. Get this. Feast your eyes, sir, on that thing. A rapier designed intentionally for Meyer-based styles, at least allegedly. And he has He has the classic steel one, which makes me think of you. Hey, John, that's fine. But Ryan, this is the one I think you might want to look at if you want your next or a sidearm. You're a long enough armed person that would be almost a short sword. Okay. Now, yeah, look it up. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, and it's running at the $65 line, but it has a really innovative grip. You can tell Christian is trying to do something new. Hi, John. What you've missed basically is we found out my Lord sword, which you know, this one, is actually within a half an inch of the proportions of Arya's needle from Game of Thrones, as a replica, as the life-size replicas. So I'm trying to bug people. The steel one they have is really fancy and is a solid $200 cheaper than the. So I'm really, yeah. If you have the money, Ryan, you definitely want to get in on that steel rapier. Like I said, I have to say it that way to delineate it from what I'm talking about. I got cut on my nose, but John, yeah. We found out my sword is essentially needle, which is so funny because when Game of Thrones came out, I had about 6 people shoot me the clips to, okay, thank you, to the water dance scenes with Sergio. That is honestly, aside from some memes, all the Game of Thrones I've watched. So I'm actually excited because my new plot is to scheme, scam, and push all the companies to try to make those so that all these lovely ladies who are coming to me and they're like, Nick, there's nothing my hands can get around to fence with, can get something like that and at least have a poly trainer. So this is my new mission. While I'm chasing making neck knives, everyone should wear one. These should be common, standard, day to day, but that's chase cats for practice. Oh, John, we chase enough cats. But dang it, I've got a cat trying to get in right now. Her name is Cece. She's adorable, but I'm still allergic, so I can't do it. Okay, now, so yeah, there are some really neat things coming out on the market, and I do love seeing that. Now, would I prefer to buy from somebody like Christian at Purple Heart? Or, John, if you get the gear when you get money, like a laser cutter or something, why would your neck knife get you thrown in jail, John? Unless it's an assist open and you're going to Michigan, or it's carbon fiber like a couple of mine, and that's not steel enough to count. Oh, my mini K-bar is out in the living room because I was using it. Would be a perfect little neck knife for you, John, because your hands are mucking hooge. But I like the Connect Nif. I love that. I don't think that was on purpose, but I love it anyway. Yeah, this is a good time to do what we do, and I'm encouraging people to get out and train and prep, and I'm really looking for questions and stuff for next week. But getting back to Ryan, just hack the guard off that basic rapier trainer, adjust the length, and that'll end up being pretty close to the needle from the show. I've actually considered that, because if we pull out our good friend, the Italian side sword tactical trainer, and where is my tape measure? I always lose that thing. Anyway, it may have been knocked down in the process, but we'll run it alongside this. You see, the difference is rather substantial, but I could actually take this and just cut about 6 inches, 8 inches off, and have something. I think instead what I'll do is I've had Christian, obviously that's how this was born, do custom weapons. So on my list, once I get some money to do it with that's accessible, I'm thinking of commissioning a needle replica. He's done wooden Game of Thrones replicas before. The trick will be getting him to keep the handguard narrow enough for the ladies and for me, because I have little short hands. They're wide, but my fingers are short, so that affects the whole grip thing. But I think we can arrange that. I want to get competition going because we all do best when the market is competing. The customers profit. If one person is making one thing, they charge what they want to charge for it, and we don't necessarily profit. I like this too. This is a very nice little trainer. But because I've actually considered if it were a little straighter, just ordering like the Honshu tactical rapier, tactical katana trainer, and just hacking the guard off and taking the blade, which is this nice long thin blade, shaping the bottom and putting a guard of some sort onto it. But I mean, for that, my small sword, aside from I just need to epoxy the pommel to keep the balance where I want it. This, while a bit longer, works really well, and it's just a butchered version 1 Tai Chi sword, a Jin, that I mildly modified. It started out live one of these. This is the old style Jin. I just pulled the guard off. This part was this kind of odd snap-on little pommel was snapped off by a student not respecting the weapon. And then I made a cross guard and weighted the pommel with washers, wrapped it, and it gave me a feasible small sword. Now I'm inclined to do another one and narrow it out, but these are harder to find because I went to order a replacement because I wanted to at least keep one of these on hand should I ever encounter my old buddy Marco, Sword and they've changed them to a one-piece unit that's actually quite a bit sturdier. Still, again, I find myself going, well, shoot, I could cut right here off and have, dang, look at that, dang near a perfect replica, which I still may do. I may order another one of these, but I didn't expect them to be different styles. So there's a lot of fluidity. At the same time, while I am totally comfortable butchering, bastardizing, and manufacturing my own gear, it's part of my mission. And I don't know when it became part of my mission, but it's part of my mission to make sure that somebody like Cindy Kep doesn't have to. That they can go, because like the grip on this is totally feasible for a small hand. It just needs to be that long. Exactly. But I don't want you to have to be. I don't want you to have to be creative. But as far-fetched as that sounds, it's something that I really believe. And I worry that it's a type of gatekeeping. Because when I was in the SCA, I saw a lot of gatekeeping. Female fighters had it bad. Female fencers had it bad. Female fighters had it worse. I saw authorizations that were just character assassinations, like beat them to death to try to force them to submit instead of becoming authorized, things like that. And then done with this warped sense of, well, it's for their own safety. Bull. So I'm going to keep kind of, crusading, but you make good points for me. And I'll keep experimenting, because if it turns out that it's cheaper and easier to just cut one of these things down, make an impromptu weapon based, along this sort of premise. Then I'll do videos talking about how to make these, and we'll go down the line that way. And I'm okay with that. A lot of it, guys, comes down to you. My purpose is to serve the community. I'm building this community, and I would love, anything I can give to help keep doing what I'm doing. And that, see, Cindy kept says I was fortunate. I found a few good guys who were of the mind that if girls had one and could handle the fencing. Yeah, and that's what I'm all about. That's what I've always been about. Adaptive, uplifting, upbuilding philosophy. When I take a student and when I talk to them, I ask, what do they want out of this? Are they somebody who's very driven and they want a ranking system and advancement stuff? Because then I'm very likely to give them the basics and help them find a group that has that for them so that they can chase that more. Are they wanting to just improve? I've had some people who just want to be eclectic. They want to try all the styles and do all the things. And I have run into a point in my life where I realize, like, I'm sitting here, I have many more trainers than I have swords, and I have a lot of swords. Gonna drop that now. Because the training part is what I love. I love helping people get better. And I tell everybody who works through the same set of shtick. And part of it is my goal is to keep you safe, let you have a good time. And yeah, I will trump you having a good time to keep everybody safe. I've offended people, and I don't care. My tarp is messed up, but it's not showing anything other than some foam that's sideways, so I'm not worried about it. But you won't have a good time if you're not safe. But more weapons, more ways to kill is what John says. Yeah. But then I'm going to help you find what works for you. If I allow myself a moment of arrogance, I am something of an Ollivander of martial weapons, of melee weapons. I'm the guy who looks at how people move, how they talk, what they like, and I can start handing them things that might work like they want. And there are moments I live for. One of them is when you find the right weapon, the right trainer that fits somebody's hand, and they take it and they hold it up and they get this grin. Because that'll do, pig. There's a moment there where I stop being in the room to them, where somebody who wants to learn how to sword fight gets that sword that feels right. It's magic. It's the kind of magic I believe in. And that's what I help people do. Yeah. Steve it's him with pistols. In a perfect world, Steve Clausen would run the premier firearms training school. He would own it. He would have business managers to do the sucky, businessy parts. And he'd keep an eye on it. And then every day he'd walk down to the range and just randomly help people. Most people would probably never knew he owned it because he's efficient. And there's an elegance when he starts to understand, oh, that doesn't work for you. This does. Let's move the pieces. And he's not afraid to go, this is a less cool firearm, but I think you'll like it. Or this is a more cool or more expensive or different. For example, I would have never imagined that I would have liked this heavy caliber pistols as I did. That was what he handed me. I enjoyed them. It was one of those great learning. It was the side of the table I don't get to be on very often because of what I do. And to just play a bit. And at that time, it was poking holes at range. John with archery, absolutely. You are a better archery instructor than a sword instructor. You're a good sword instructor, but you are much happier with the, let's find the right bow. Let's find the right stance. Let's adjust it. Let's work through this. That's where I think you're happiest. And I get that. And the other moments when they realize they're doing it right, it's glorious. And that's a lot of what I get out of this. This is why I only charged one student ever, and that's because I was driving out to his house and I needed gas money. And I ended up accepting some cool stuff in the exchange because I'm that guy. It's not about charging people. That's why this isn't a pay to view kind of thing. I mean, I put my style out there. I do video walkthroughs for free. I give seminars for free. Why? Because I think sword fighting is for everybody. Anybody who wants to learn it. And when I say sword fighting, I mean knives, I mean axes. The whole kit and caboodle is for everyone. And that's why I will go to contact makers and bug them. Like, hey, make something for small hands. Make something for the people who can't afford it. Make a cheap line, because everybody deserves access to be their own hero. And when you work at it, when you're passionately pursuing something, yes, there's a incredibly practical, useful side to something. This is useful. I can make a shelter with this as my only tool. I prefer it to be in the woods, and it will take me a while, but I can make go. You give me enough time, and I can do wonders. I can also defend myself with it. I joke that neck knives are my teddy bear because I don't feel comfortable going out without one. It doubles my survivability in an emergency. Now, I'm planning to acquire the one with the little compass and the fire starters, and if I like the knife, it will be very popular. But I do that. This is me, take care of me. This is my stuff. The sword, though. The sword is how you take people who were victims in life and they become heroes. People who are worried that they're turning into the villains because they got the anger and the hate and the fury that life has descended upon them and they don't know where to put it. They put it into the sword. And you can defend with the sword. And you can train. And you can work the stress, the anger, the anxiety, the tension out like fire out of your fingertips. That's what I do. I help people find that. Now, after a while, if they are competitive, they end up in groups and they compete and and occasionally all I get to do is light them like a bottle rocket and watch it go. And I count myself dang lucky to do that. Now, John says, I make stuff for free, especially fun and interesting stuff. Yeah, sometimes you do, John. Sometimes you charge for stuff. And you know what? That's the other part. You're good at outfitting. And I really see that. And if I'm reading that wrong, I apologize. But I see that every time you're making something to help somebody, every time you're making a sword or armor or a tool to help build what they need, you're doing it in part in memory of our mutual friend Jesse, because that's what Jess was about. And I know that's part of why I do it, because there are times when I'm sitting here and it's quiet and I'm working and I'm making something I'm going to give to somebody because I think it'll help them out, or I'm fixing something or I'm modifying it. I'm a half-mad gnome half the time anyway. I can almost hear him kind of chuckling in the background. Because that's how we keep people we love alive. Because when they leave, part of it is accepting the truth, and it's a hard truth, that the work we seek out to do and I don't mean like working at McDonald's or pushing papers in an office. I'm talking about the parts of life that matter. It could be something. I've known people who it's their front lawn. They've worked their whole life to have a front lawn so they can mow it. That's what matters to them. And you know what? That's kind of beautiful because they know what they want. They got it. They maintain it. Beautiful. But when somebody who's impacted us, especially with their dream, when they pass, I believe that a shard of that dream is sort of fragments. And that shard, it becomes part of our dream. It becomes part of us. Part of it's giving back. There's some karma. There's some debt there. Part of it's preserving. It's a type of immortality. It's a very special type of immortality. Where we, as people, as survivors who are still here and don't know what, if anything, is there. That's beautiful. So yeah, we have an obligation. When we have a gift and a talent, we have an obligation to the betterment of humanity, beyond religion, beyond philosophy. It's just to the collective community of what we are, to try to use that to help others. When you make things, John, when Steve teaches people, I've seen the people Steve teaches. And he gets a crowd a lot like mine, a lot of the time. Yeah, you'll get the toughs. You'll get the bad mofos who want to be badder, and you work with them. It's fun. You get the people, but you also get the broken people who are looking for the strength to pull themselves together. And that's what the guild's about, folks. I run with a group, and they call themselves the Rising Tide, led by Brian K. Morris of Risingtide Publishing, under the theory of rising tide lifts all boats. It's a beautiful theory. It's a beautiful concept. The guild is kind of like that, but we empower and we educate and we share our ideas to uplift each other and make stronger. You know, the world gets dark, and it's been dark. And people die, and they get sick, and dreams die, and things break. But we can help build them and repair them and upgrade them. And that's what we're about here, folks. And yeah, I like this knife trainer here because the grip is comfortable. It's got a good length. It's sturdy. This is a good knife trainer. I would like to own the knife this is based on. Absolutely. This also has no flex, so you have to be safe. Educating, sure. We're also about, this is a knife trainer I made out of a cutting board. The irony of a knife trainer made out of a cutting board is never lost on me. I used it to practice how to use a kitchen knife in defensive means. That way, if I ever have to defend one, I don't fight like this like I fight something like this. I mean, my techniques are the same or very similar, but the intent and the spirit of why I would use something like this is very different. And that's important. And we have to look at the different faces of that, because everybody deserves to fight. Everybody deserves to try. Everybody deserves gear that fits them. If they're big like John, and we have to skin an arrow stream to get the metal to make armor, we'll skin a bloody arrow stream. If they're a dainty half pixie elfin person like Cindy Cap, we'll find a way. You know, Stef's gone, but shoot. 1 second. I gotta read something. This is dang near a felling axe in her arms because she has small arms and she's a small person. Okay? But it works for her. She has one. She calls it Mr. Happy. It's painted. It has a smiley face on it. That's what we're about. So, we're getting towards the last 5 minutes of when I'm slated to be on. And I got Brother Love Mia raised his head for a brief sermon there. If it offends, I apologize. If it doesn't, good. Maybe you learned you something. But we're getting down to the wire a bit. Not quite the end, but close enough that I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Dusty. I want to thank Ryan Coker. That's out in the woods or over in the woods. Like he's off in the woods. Always quality input, guys. Cindy Kep is always a light. Always. I've seen her on probably 5 or 6 different commenting shows. Always consistently running them. John is a fount of knowledge on certain things. Steve, yeah. And he has a lot of old inside jokes and old memories of paths we've walked together, friends we've lost, and foes we've lost. But and Steve, I mean, I have people who have supported me, and it's not much financially. But I appreciate every cent because it means somebody cares enough about what we do to help each other, to help them. They're making a positive change, and it's heroic. That's why I wrote The Simple Sword. I wrote The Simple Sword because I saw people who weren't being allowed to learn. They couldn't afford it, or they weren't allowed because they were overweight, or the wrong race, or the wrong ethnicity, or the wrong religious belief, or wrong body type, wrong level of ability. I don't care. I wanted it to be where anybody could learn if they could get their hands on this book. That's why I keep trying to get it into libraries. And that's what these people are helping me do. I get to help people. I'm going to tell you, I spent a month, even though I faked it for these shots, because these videos are so crucial. It's me reaching out, and it's you guys making contact. But I was in bad shape. I went a month without drawing. I went, actually 2 months almost without drawing. I went, I don't know how long without being able to even rudimentally drill. My hand stopped, and I felt useless. And for me, being useless it's an unthinkable, unforgivable sin. Is that right, just, or proper? No, but that's how it is directed at me. But I could get here and I could educate, I could look up sales, I could look up tools, look up advice, still serve, still be something. And know that when the day comes when I'm in a wheelchair, and my hands stop working because the nerves have finally given up the ghost, I can say I spent every week during the pandemic trying to help people online and talking to some of the best folks out there. So guys, that's what's important. Helping each other. And I like to think that if I got ran over by a seed truck tomorrow, the guild would be serving the guild. You take care of each other. And that's what you should do. We have the best and brightest have gone ahead, and the dullest are left behind. And if I am on that number, I count myself lucky to still be doing something. So, with that note, touch somber, but that's okay. I will be back at the same time. If I can make it work, again, I know I have a backlog of videos I need to shoot. If you have any requests, guys, join the Historical Fencing Guild's public group. You can contact me, leave comments. If you're watching this in the review or whatever, thank you. Leave messages. I'll get to them best I can. I love to answer questions and have that thought-provoking conversation with somebody who's not, unlike so many, not afraid to say, I don't know, let's find out. Because then we learn together. So keep an eye on the sales, guys. There's some good stuff coming. Bug your suppliers to get the stuff that we don't have. Be kind to yourself, to each other. And as always, I need to thank you and ask you to continue to support your local swordmaster. Good night, folks.